So you're probably asking yourself, what the heck is that big giant pair of scissors, Clint? Well, these aren't scissors at all. These are fulling shears, and they were used in the process for fulling cloth. What does that have to do with the American Revolution? Well, one of the only battles or skirmishes fought here in Bucks County, and it had everything to do with over 2,000 yards of cloth.
Prior to the American Revolution, textiles are far and away the most valuable item an early American could own in their home. This is in part due to the fact that many textiles during this period are imported from Great Britain. When the American Revolution began, early Americans were in trouble when it came to textiles. Supply chains that they had relied upon prior to the war were interrupted, and they needed textiles not just for their daily life, but also for use in the military. They needed canvas for things like knapsacks and tents. They needed sailcloth for sails for the new Navy, and they also needed textiles for clothing the soldiers. George Washington and his troops were wintering less than 50 miles from here at Valley Forge. And almost immediately, textile shortages put soldiers in a pretty dangerous situation. In February of 1778, George Washington is receiving correspondence from members of the Pennsylvania Regiment in particular, discussing where they can get more cloth for soldiers' uniform coats. And they look to Bucks County to supply these textiles. Now, the military had a process called foraging, where they would go out into communities near the military encampments, and they would pressure citizens to exchange goods that they needed, such as grain or hay or textiles. Washington's foraging parties enter Bucks County, and they take about 2,000 yards of woolen cloth. And they store this cloth at Thomas Jenks' fulling mill here in Newtown. Cloth has to be finished before it can be given to the tailors in order to turn the cloth into uniform coats. This process of fulling and gathering all this cloth is a perfect opportunity for the British to target and retaliate by claiming these textiles for themselves and depriving the Continental Army of much needed clothing for troops wintering at Valley Forge. British troops in occupied Philadelphia gather and head towards Newtown with the hope of seizing this cloth and interrupting this process. They arrive at Thomas Jenks' fulling mill, they take hostages as well as all 2,000 yards of the cloth, and they burn the mill to the ground. After burning down Thomas Jenks' fulling mill, they head here to the Bird-In-Hand Tavern in Newtown, where tailors are busily sewing uniform coats for the Continental Army. The Battle of the Bird-In-Hand Tavern left 5 Americans dead, 4 wounded, and over a dozen hostages taken back to occupied Philadelphia. In the aftermath of this, George Washington was deeply upset because this was a devastating blow to the Continental Army. This meant that soldiers who were already without important textiles to stay warm and healthy during the war would have to go without many more weeks. This is one of the few battles fought in Bucks County during the Revolutionary War, and it underscores that shots are fired not just over differing political beliefs, but also because of the importance of material goods and supplies that make a war possible.